Welcome back to In Conversation. This is a video series I do on a monthly basis where I talk with different writers from all different facets of traditional publishing about their experiences so that you can learn something too and we can have a conversation together. And this week we're talking all about how to prepare for drafting a book. And I'm here with Payal Doshi, who is a middle grade author, and I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Hi everyone, I'm Payal Doshi and I am a middle grade author. My book is called Ria and the Blood of the Nectar. It's going to be released May 2021 by Mango and Marigold Press. The story is about a 12-year-old girl called Ria Chetri who lives in Darjeeling, India. And on the night that she turns 12, her twin brother goes missing. The book is set in Darjeeling, India, and then also in a fantastical land called Astranthia. And that's my book.
Yay, that's so exciting. And I'll have all her book information below so that you can check everything out. Do you have pre-order links right now?
Not yet.
Not yet, but you can add the book to Goodreads and you can await pre-order links. And that's great. And that sounds wonderful. And you're my first middle grade author that I've had on here, which is really exciting because I'm so like YA space. So it's nice to you'll get that middle grade perspective and young adult perspective. Our drafting styles may end up being similar anyway, but it's like exciting to see the other side of that. Are you a plotter, pantser, or plantser, and why?
So I would say I'm an 85% plotter and 15% pantser. I definitely need an outline before I begin. If I don't have an outline, I don't know where to go. And to me, the important thing is, having those checkposts. I need to know that I'm going from point A to point B to point C. And it's then within the point A to point B is where I tend to pants my way through if I need to. Like with the first chapter of the sequel that I have just begun to draft, like writing the first draft, I had my outline. It was like, great, good to go. I started writing the first chapter and, I finished it at that, aha moment where I'm like, okay, this is a great spot to end the first chapter. And then I read it and it just felt like my outline, but padded up because it was a very detailed outline. And then I'm like, oh, but where's the tension and where's my dialogue and, where's the action happening? And so then I'm like, I go back and I start pantsing my way through those little sections like, oh, maybe I'll have this. And it was a new character. So I had to even give backstory. So I'm like, I added backstory, then it became very like a, thick text of exposition. So I was like, okay, let's break this up. And how do I break this up? Maybe I'll throw in a dialogue with a police officer and kind of show some tension there. Or maybe he escapes the, prison cell that we think he's going to be trapped in. So then it was just pantsing my way through that point A to point B. Mm-hmm. So that's where I pants. But if I don't know where I'm going to, I would not be able to begin the chapter. Like I would just be like, okay, he does this, and then I don't know what's going to happen next. So that's my style. Like I will plot, have a very detailed outline of checkpost to checkpost, and then pants my way through it. Yeah. And also definitely plot a little bit, like plan a little bit as well. But really then the scenes are all whatever I feel like at that moment when I'm sitting to write that chapter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you have that really detailed outline, and it's really like specific elements that you're pantsing in that case.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I can really relate to that. I feel like I do call myself a plantser.
Right.
It's a very similar style. Like I have to have an outline so that I know where I'm going. So I use Save the Cat. Save the Cat Writes a Novel is basically the thing that I use. But I have to have those beats and know all those points that are happening. And then chapters, sometimes I can be loose on, sometimes I have to plan them. But I'll plan them very lightly, which is why I say plantser. Because I'll be like, they go to the zoo.
Yeah.
That's it.
But exactly that basically like they go to the zoo and then the lion escapes his jail cell. Like that's the way, his cell, not his jail cell. And so like that would be the two checkposts. Like they go there and then the lion escapes and it's like how and what happens in that little space of time. I will sort of just start thinking about. Although I have to say, like when I had to write the first chapter of the first draft of the sequel, I had a scene in mind. Like I knew what that scene would be. And so I started with that and then pants my way through.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense, especially in like a sequel, because when you've been working on your first book, you've probably been already kind of thinking about how you want to open. My sequel ended up being I had written like an epilogue for my first book, and my agent was like, no, because this opens everything back up. She's like, you basically ended on a cliffhanger now. Why don't you put that in like the second book? And so I had technically already had the first chapter written, so it was a little bit different.
Wow. You know.
That's my thing though. I do pants all of my magic systems,
Same.
which becomes
I will say, but yeah.
it becomes difficult. I always regret it, but I
Always.
always do it.
Yep. I feel like there's a level of plotting I enjoy, and then once I reach that level and I have to do more, I'm like, no. Like character cards. I love that idea. Like character profiles. I love that idea. I just cannot do it. And I have tried with this book, and then I'm writing a whole brand new book independent of the Ria series. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it with this. I'm gonna create character profiles to help me with my outline and plot the story. And I got as far as naming these pages so well. And
Yeah, I can't do it either. The idea of filling out a full, I can do the most basic character sheet, but like filling out anything more than that, I can't. And half the time I don't even use it. Like I'll be like, this character, has like dark brown hair and like brown eyes. And then I'll write and I'll be like, their eyes are green now. And I don't even stick to it. So there's no point.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, I had no idea what my characters' hobbies are. I'm like, no, I'll figure that out when I need to, if I kind of do in the plot. Like if I need to, give her a quirk or something like that, then I'll sit to think. But beforehand, I'm like, no,
Yeah.
we'll just figure this along the way.
Yeah, exactly. What is your first step when you're preparing to draft a brand new book?
It will be starting with an outline.
Mhm.
I mean, I guess originally it starts out with plot idea. Uh, and then I will expand that into a very loose outline initially because I'm still feeling out my whole plot. Um, and then once I have like a plot that I'm happy with, I'm like, yes, this has all the elements that I kind of wanted to have. Then I'll go down and get into the details uh, of like if like what the other book that I'm writing is a mystery where things go missing and our character has to find it, and so inserting red herrings and inserting again the stumbling blocks of the investigation and like things like that. Like in my loose outline it would be like, and there'll be 3-4 people in there who she thinks are leads and are not leads, but who are those people, what are their names, how do they show up, no idea. And so then so that's the loose, broad, I would say, outline. And then I will go into really, and then the second outline has a lot of research, especially if it's fantasy, if like this book, the book that I'm talking about is set in a magical kingdom. So then I'm like, and it's inspired by Indian palaces and Indian kingdoms. So I'm like, oh, what do they call the butler there or the lady's maid? Like that's not what they wouldn't use those words. So it like I went through like an entire like a wormhole of research. I was just like, oh, but that was fun too. I watched a ton of movies. So a lot of research happens in the second stage of outlining, not at all in the first. First is just me and like me staring into the space and just thinking, maybe I should do this. And someone should betray her. Like who that someone is, I don't know. That kind of thing. So
Yeah.
those are that I have to start with that before I start drafting.
Mm-hmm. And do you have a specific, like, do you follow like a 3-act structure? Is there a specific
Yeah.
structure you use?
Yes, actually. So for the Ria book, it's almost a classic hero's journey by Joseph Campbell. I followed his almost all of his points. And that helped me, again, that came in the second outline that I did to see if I was hitting all of the beats. And then for the new book, it's like I said, it's like they're solving an investigation. And so I use the thriller beat sheet, which had places where you're like, so you introduce the item, or it could be used for murder mysteries as well, this big like, aha, this person's dead or this thing is missing. And then your first brush with authority, like for the main character. And so you set out who's doing the primary investigation, if there's a secret investigation, or is the character the detective for that particular story. So you set that up, and then all of the stumbling blocks that they encounter, and the red herrings that they encounter, and then when all hell breaks loose, and the final sort of like big reveal as to what has happened. I will give a shout out to Alexa Dunn, who I follow as a another author tuber, and she did a video on thriller beats, which I'm like, yes, you're like my guru. She did a really, really, really good one. And so with the thriller beat, and I think she has links in her video too. So I had that printed out, and I had her video going, and I was like sitting with my outline and like just going plot by plot to see. Of course, you choose what works for you. You don't do exactly what she says, because hers is a murder mystery and mine wasn't. But it's so great to use as reference.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you just need that initial framework so that you can have something in mind, and then you can kind of like, swap things around as you want to. Even though I use Save the Cat for every single book, I change things as I want to, and that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really helps. It really does help. Again, kudos to the people who don't need any of this.
Yeah. That's a whole different thing. Whatever you're doing is something very separate. Yeah, for sure. What am I talking about again? Right. So I think what I end up doing first when I am preparing to do a new draft. In the past, I used to right away, I would start with my plot outline, but I've actually shifted now. And now I start with like a really loose character outline. So it's not a character sheet, because I hate those and I can't answer a million questions about my character. I don't even put in physical description or anything, because I know I'll just make it up on the fly as I feel like it. But I'll do, based on like Save the Cat and Story Genius tenets, I'll basically say what's the character's like internal goal, and what's their like shard of glass. So what's their issue, their, what would you call it? I guess like a fatal flaw. What is that? And then I'll write down, where did that fatal flaw come from? And so that I know kind of what they think about the world, and then what is it that they want to achieve, like that sort of general theme, and how that ties back to it.
That actually serves two purposes. Like it kind of gives you a nice like it flushes out your character, even without the specifics of the character, but really like the essence of the character, which I think it's so much easier to do descriptions and be like, this is so tall, and this color hair and this color eyes, and where is this sort of thing. But it's more difficult to flush out the character and like actually understand what motivates them internally, and what, like you said, is their fatal flaw. And so I might actually use that going forward.
It's pretty good. It's been helpful for me, because before I used to do the plot and then I'd have to shoehorn the character's motivation into it. Whereas when I start with the character, then I know everything that's going to happen, because I'm like, okay, this is their fatal flaw. So at this point in the book, when they're at their lowest point, it has to be because their flaw has made them mess something up. And so then it's easier for me to plot stuff, because I know, okay, like if their flaw is that they don't trust people, so they're going to have a bad time because they didn't trust someone when they should have, and something really bad happened to them, and maybe they like lost a friendship or something like that. And it's so much easier for me to do all of that if I start with the main character like that. And then when I'm thinking about like the antagonist, then I kind of know that's someone that's going to push whatever their fatal flaw is. And then their love interest or their friend, whatever B story person, whether it's a friend or a love interest, I know that they're going to have to expose that person's flaw. So then usually it'll be like the opposite. So if my main character doesn't trust people, then their love interest is someone that like trusts people too much or something like that. And it's just so much easier for me to do everything
organic. You're so right, because we all get, and I certainly do, I really get stuck in the trappings of plot. And you kind of think that, yes, I'll get my character to do what the character needs to do so that the plot continues. But in reality, there have been many times when I've been stuck simply because I'm like, how do I get her to do this? I mean, logically, this makes no sense for me to get to this point. I need her to do X, and that is just so out of character, or it just doesn't make like logical sense. And I definitely had that issue with my first book.
If there's one thing that you think someone should absolutely include in their preparation for drafting, what would that be and why?
Well, I feel like whoever's watched this video is going to realize that I'm going to say outline because I really heavily rely on that. But I don't think that it's necessary to have a very detailed outline like I prefer to have. But I think having a blueprint of sorts, it can be really basic and really loose, but just having an idea of where your character is going to go through this plot is just going to be beneficial and time saving more than anything else. I think you can do it, you can write a book any way that you are comfortable with. But sometimes taking the path to least resistance may be, the better way to go just because you stress yourself out lesser, you hit lesser roadblocks, you don't tie yourself up in a knot and you're just like, I don't know what to do. You're less likely, I think, maybe to even give up on the project if you have this outline and you don't, again, like write yourself into a corner and you don't know how to back yourself out. So that would be my piece of advice. And I think that sometimes even like pantsers, like full 100% pantsers feel like just a plot idea is good enough to go. And again, each to their own. But I think like for Rhea and the Blood of the Nectar, the plot of the book, if I had to like really just, and it was really the idea that I had that was the genesis of the book, which was main characters are twins. And on the night that they turn 12, the brother goes missing, and the plot is the sister going to find her brother. And I feel like that's just the plot idea. And then the outline is, actually, I didn't even have the idea of him going missing when they turned 12. It was just like he goes missing and she goes to find him. And then when I started plotting it and outlining, I was like, okay, it'll happen on the night that they turn 12. So it's on their birthday and they turn 12 and he goes missing. And then they don't know why he's gone missing. And then she goes on this little quest to uncover clues and different ways to find out where he's gone. And then it leads her to a portal. And then she portals into this magical land. And at that time I was like, you know what? She needs a friend. She can't do all of this by herself. So then I'm like, inserted a friend. And now that relationship is one of the, I think, the best parts of the book, Rhea and her best friend Leela. So anyway, and it's like, then you get to this, otherworldly land, and there she learns secrets about her past and finds out why he has been kidnapped. And then we kind of have more of a payoff, which is it's not just about finding him, but it's also about saving the realm. So, I think that just plot you need it, I think. Or some sort of tension, or it could be like a character flaw or a character thing that you want to explore. That genesis is great of the idea. But if you can just stretch and expand that out a little bit in whichever way that you're comfortable and, as loosely or as detailed, I think it's probably the best starting point to then take your book in whichever direction that you want to take it.
Like have a couple points beyond just the like concept.
Yes, and for the same book, for the first book, I didn't do that. I had a very loose outline, but I didn't do a detailed outline. And that's what I feel like for me and my writing process, I need a detailed outline. And because I didn't do that, I ended up having many issues. Pacing was huge. I mean, I took forever to get, and I still think I'm struggling with that. And I think with the second book, I'm not nailing it, but I'm definitely nailing it better and quicker than I did with book one. So I had pacing issues, which is why my first round of like queries, my book got rejected. I got R&Rs and stuff like that, just saying that, oh my God, it was pacing issues and it was ridiculously long. Like it was 97,000 words for a middle grade book. Like I don't even know what I was thinking, and I would fully attribute it to the fact that I did not have a detailed outline going in, which would have like been able to show me the points where I'm like, okay, like I didn't need this much build up. Like so pacing, I think, word count, also fleshing out the characters.
Absolutely. Having somewhere to, even having the loosest sense of where you're going to help you with that drafting so that you're not doing such huge revisions later.
Basically, that's the only reason why. I think that there's no one right way or wrong way. It's just like this will most likely have you doing lesser revision.
Yeah. And sometimes just to like bring you through to actually finishing the book so that you're not getting stuck somewhere in the middle because you have no idea where you want to go and then you don't end up finishing it.
I fully agree. I'm sure there are a lot of writers who have started like with the idea of writing and then it's just gotten too much and have given up because of that reason, you know, not because of laziness or not being disciplined enough or whatever. I feel like, yes, those also might play a role, but really I think it's because it just takes so much out of you. And if you can't bring yourself out of that, it's almost like I have to trash this whole thing. And then it's just too daunting to start over because I mean, I get nightmares of writing something and not backing up in 3 different places because if it's gone, I just know I'm not going to be able to produce this. Like I get a full-blown panic attack if I can't find it. I'm just like, no, 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 no. And so,
yeah, I'm the same. I know. I'm like, if I lost this book, I was like, I don't know that I would redo it.
I wouldn't be able to. Yeah, exactly. Oh my God.
I do so much backing up. I have so many backups because I'm like, I can't. I lost like one scene a while ago and I just like, I wrote it again.
More than enough that I needed.
Yeah. I just moved on. I was like, I can't. And I just like did a whole new scene and I just cut it right out because I was like, I'm not rewriting it.
You bet. I mean, I back it up to the cloud. I write in the cloud, so it backs up directly to the cloud. And when I'm done, I'm like, no matter how, you know, rough of a, you know, writing spree that was at all, I just email it to myself because worst case scenario, you know, what if the cloud crashes? And my husband works at Microsoft. He's like, that's not going to happen. You're fine. I'm like, you never know. Like that could be like an outage. I don't know.
Yeah, I do the same. I have it on my Apple Cloud and then I like transfer it to my external periodically and along with like the time machine backups. I'm like, you don't know what can happen.
You never know. It's so true.
What was I going to say? Right. So kind of similarly in that I do think you kind of need to have where you're going, have an idea of where you're going. But to me, it's very like character based. I'm like, you need to know what your character wants, what they need, so what they actually should be achieving, and like what within them is stopping them from doing that. And I think at least having that much in mind, you can know how everything is going to turn out for them and what they're going to do and not do. And having that at least to start, to me, will help you a lot, because I feel like when you don't start with that, then you just end up with the character that's just doing random stuff just because.
Yeah, exactly. And we just went on a bus today and I'm at the market. Yay. No, that is so true. And again, whatever I will reiterate, like I think your idea of starting with the characters to just a sketch or whatever you want to call it, just loosely getting inside the head of your character more than anything else. Before you start anything, like if you even don't like plotting or outlining, if you can just get into the head of your character and just explore that a little bit, that would be a really, really good starting point to then take your story wherever you want to go.
So that's it for this episode of In Conversation. Thank you so much for joining me. You're going to be on this side. And for chatting about your book. I'm going to have all of her links below so that you can check those out and add her book to Goodreads and all of that fun stuff. Follow on social media. And of course, because this is In Conversation, please feel free to join the conversation in the comments and share the sort of ways that you prepare for drafting, new ways you want to try. If anything that we talked about today kind of sparked maybe a new idea of how you'd like to go about that, let us know about that as well. That would be great. And please like this video if you liked it. You can subscribe below if you haven't subscribed already. I do these videos monthly, and I also talk about all sorts of things: traditional publishing, writing advice, etc. And thank you so much for watching. Bye.
Bye.